I just discovered that I am pregnant after having revenge sex with the husband of my ex's partner. My ex and I met when I was 20 years old, but we were only friends until we started dating 2 years ago. Last year, I found out that my ex had been cheating on me practically throughout our entire relationship with a girl he met through a mutual friend. I ended things after discovering this and told the girl's fiancé about their affair. He broke off their engagement after finding out, and she seemed indifferent until she realized that my ex's money wasn't actually his. My grandmother left me a large inheritance after she passed away in 2019. My ex had been showing off the things I gifted him during our relationship, even claiming that the house and the vintage car my grandfather left me in his will were his. Looking back, it's not something I'm proud of, but I let my ex walk all over me for the first month or two after breaking up because I missed him so much. I gave him money and tried to make things work, but my parents and friends always scolded me whenever I ran to them crying after he ignored me for her. I didn't officially end it until the girl's ex-fiancé messaged me, telling me that she was mocking her old friends about how pathetic and desperate I was for my ex, who didn't care about me at all. I was very upset and asked him to meet me because I knew that if I talked to my parents or friends about this, they would just give me more lectures. He agreed, and we met at a random food stall. We ended up spending most of the day exploring and talking about how we were doing. He also confided in me about his relationship with his ex. They had known each other for 10 years and liked each other for most of the time they were friends, but he wasn't looking for a relationship because he was focusing on school. He decided to give them a chance after she drove over 12 hours overnight to see him because they talked on the phone, and he said he was feeling bad and stressed out due to the rigor of his residency. She dropped everything to take care of him, clean his place, and make him homemade meals after discovering he was surviving on vending machine snacks and instant coffee. He told me in detail how he had never felt so loved and cared for, and how after she did that for him, he decided she was the one. He thought that if this wasn't love, then love wasn't real. Discovering that she had been cheating on him for the past 2 years made everything make sense. She had been postponing marriage, telling all her friends that she had doubts about him. He had been trying to convince her to go to couples therapy when I broke the news that she was sleeping with my ex. I felt like a monster hearing his love story and then realizing they didn't have their happy ending because of my ex and me. We kept in touch occasionally, checking in on each other and meeting up for a quick meal now and then. We lost contact after the girl my ex cheated on me with somehow convinced him to get back with her. I got a bit depressed after he cut me off, explaining that he was still in love with her and wanted to make things work, which meant starting fresh. I found out through some internet searches that my ex also cheated on her, so she got back with her ex-fiancé. A few months passed, and things returned to almost normal. I started therapy and was ready to start dating and try the dating world again when, around New Year's, I received a call from him. He was crying and asking if I was available to talk. Of course, I said yes, and out of concern, I met him at his house. He broke down and told me how he found her and my ex in the guest room of his mother's house during Christmas when she snuck him in for a quickie during the busy family Christmas party. Everything fell apart when he found them in the guest room after spending 20 minutes looking for her everywhere. We drank a bit and ended up having sex. He apologized and said it was a mistake, that he wasn't in his right mind and just wanted revenge sex, but it didn't make him feel better afterward. I tried sending him platonic messages a few times afterward to see if he was okay, but he blocked me. So I left it and continued with my therapy and my life. Last week, I went to check in with my doctor as I had been having strong cramps and to get a new prescription for my birth control, which I used to help with my polycystic ovary syndrome. I had to do a routine test to check for the possibility of pregnancy, and I was very shocked when it came back positive. I've been keeping this new information to myself and have been contemplating whether or not to tell him or if I should even go through with the pregnancy. My doctor informed me that since I am still in the early stages, I still have a high risk of miscarriage, so I don't know if I should be worried about all this since there is a chance I could lose it and then it would just seem like I was trying to get his attention or something, especially after he made it clear he was uncomfortable talking to me after we slept together. I haven't told anyone, and I am going crazy because I don't know what to do. Update 15 months later. A lot has happened since my original post. I know many people were against it, but I went ahead with the pregnancy, and I will always be grateful for my beautiful baby. I originally planned to abort but couldn't go through with the appointment. I am pro-choice and always will be. The fact that I decided to have my baby does not mean that another woman should be forced to continue with a pregnancy she does not want. Everyone has the right to make decisions about their own bodies. My parents were very angry with me, and my whole family disowned me. I followed the advice of some of you about informing the father, who I will call D. After many failed attempts to contact him, I decided to go in person. He wasn't happy when I showed up at his house, but when I told him why, he agreed to talk to me. Dee told me he had officially ended things with his ex and wanted no contact with me because I was another link to his past with her. However, he was willing to try to come up with a co-parenting plan with me if I agreed to a paternity test first. Of course, I felt a bit bad about the paternity test part, but I agreed since we were both just acquaintances who bonded over our trauma. Everything was fairly easy until I started spotting around week 26. My obstetrician explained that while spotting is normal during pregnancy, mine was heavier, and my blood sugar and blood pressure levels were also concerning due to the risk of gestational diabetes and preeclampsia. After a few nights when Dee insisted on sleeping on my couch, he helped me move some of my things to his house as he lived closer to the hospital. I am very grateful that I decided to semi-move in with him when I did because I went into premature labor at 30 weeks and 2 days. I am very grateful to have had Dee and his family as my support system. His mother came and took turns with him at the hospital and advocated for me whenever I felt exhausted or unheard. She helped me both emotionally and physically and stayed by my side. Dee's mother also helped me work through my emotions when all I wanted was my mom. My mom and dad cut off contact with me after I decided to have and keep my baby. Dee's mom was a true blessing because she is a retired nurse. She started in OB, became a NICU nurse, and finally settled in lactation before retiring. She explained things to me when we discovered that my baby had breathing problems and a single umbilical artery, which could have been a factor in why I went into premature labor. She stayed with Dee and me so she could help me pump milk as I couldn't produce any and encouraged me when I felt like a failure for not being able to care for my child when he needed me most. She drove me to and from the hospital while my son was in the NICU because I was healing and so mentally and physically exhausted. I really believe that I didn't fall into deep postpartum depression because she supported and helped me every step of the way and was always so patient with me, even when I wasn't with myself. Dee's mom constantly reminded me that nothing was our fault and that no one did anything wrong, only that everyone faces hardships in life, and this was one we would work through together. My son graduated from the NICU and came home a month after me. Dee's mom visited often and helped with him since Dee and I were first-time parents. Dee's dad joked that it seemed like she and I had the baby together and that he and Dee were just side characters making guest appearances now and then. Since Dee was working a lot to save up more time off, his mom didn't bring his dad when she came to visit us because she didn't want him to disturb me and the baby with his noise. Dee's dad has hearing problems and sometimes isn't aware of his volume, so he didn't mind. Dee's siblings and relatives posted many pictures of our son because he was the first grandchild and the first baby in a long time. Dee's youngest cousin is 17 and turning 18 this year. Somehow, someone must have shared a photo or something, but our pictures reached my family. My parents then demanded that I let them meet my son. Dee supported whatever decision I made and said he would agree to the meeting if that was what I wanted. After thinking for a few days, I decided to talk to my parents before letting them meet my son. When we met, my parents were offended that I didn't bring my son and left him with Dee's parents. They said some really hurtful things, and then my dad started questioning when Dee would ask for his permission to marry me since we didn't have a shotgun wedding while I was pregnant. I was okay with them insulting me since I grew up with that and was used to it, but once my parents focused on Dee and his family, I got upset and decided it was time to leave. My parents tried to file for visitation rights. Honestly, before all this, I didn't even know grandparent rights existed, but they were denied because my son is still very young, and since Dee and I are on very good terms, living in the same house, they couldn't find or prove any danger to our son's well-being. My family tried contacting us and accused us of being horrible people for denying my parents their grandchild, but no one seemed to be able to say anything when Dee's family defended us and pointed out that my family had disowned me and that no one cared if I was okay until after having the baby and when everything was already under control. Dee's mom and my mom had a verbal, almost physical altercation after my mom made false reports to CPS and called the police for multiple wellness checks on us. The police gave my mom a warning for harassing us after one specific incident where she threw a fit and caused a scene when the police found nothing wrong during the wellness check and refused to listen to her demands that my son be temporarily taken from us and placed in her custody for his safety. Dee and I currently have pending restraining orders against my parents and certain family members. One of the reasons I decided to update is because about 2 months ago, a friend of Dee's invited him out for drinks, and they ran into his ex-fiancée, who later messaged him, saying she was sorry for how things ended and how she felt very hurt when she found out we had a baby together, especially since it was so soon after their relationship. Dee didn't want to talk to me about how he felt, and when I asked, he would just evade or change the conversation to a topic about our son that he knew would distract me. I noticed Dee was pulling away from me, and our relationship became a bit awkward and tense after their encounter and her message because I know he still has feelings for her, and I fear he might feel trapped with me and our son too. I noticed that the drama with my family has made Dee and his family less patient with me and my son. During Mother's Day, I overheard some members of his family making snide comments about me being at their family barbecue since I was just the mother of his child and not really part of the family. Dee just shrugged and said I had no one else to spend the day with. With things being so tense, I've been thinking about moving out and going back to my place. I stayed with Dee in his house after giving birth, but now that our son is a bit older and I am recovered, I want to give Dee back some of his space so he can start dating again if he wants and give him more bachelor time when I have our son. I want to find a way to approach moving out and planning our co-parenting without making things more awkward or possibly ruining the relationship I have with Dee and his parents. I don't want them to think I am ungrateful or anything, but I want to get back to work and resume my life so I can provide my share of our son's needs and not rely on his family more than necessary.